Yeah. I can. I mean, your video is terrible, but that's probably at my end. What do you? Okay.
Tommy, can you
No,
hear
that's
me?
not. That's not. Yeah,
What?
you have
Yeah.
to write a little. You have to hold up a sign saying, "Can you hear me?"
Well, well, that's true.
Otherwise, you'll
Although
just get yeses.
I have a secret weapon, which is my wife will let me know.
Oh, okay.
Very low sound, she says. God damn it! Every time. Hold on. Very low sound. It looks very high on
Huh.
my end. Are you sure?
Well, well, turn it up. Yeah, she's sure.
um,
Oh, gosh, I wonder.
is that better?
It's interesting.
Tommy's good, she says,
Okay.
but I am low. Is this better?
Oh,
Tell me
oh.
if this is better. You know, of all this, what? Yes. Oh, okay, good. Then I will
Okay.
do this.
On air. It says
Much
on
better.
air.
Okay, good. I'm gonna get
What?
rid of this
What?
microphone. Get out of here. Perfect, she says. Okay, great.
Okay.
Um, I wish I didn't have to hear my own echo,
Mm,
but that's okay. We'll take it.
okay. All right. Yeah, it's kind of annoying when that happens.
So, Tom, what did we want to talk about today? We wanted to talk about one of the things you had mentioned was good and evil, or really the problem of evil.
Yeah,
Um,
that's sort of a big one. Yeah. Yeah.
let's see. Can you still hear me, Tom?
I can.
You can. Okay.
I can. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's quite good,
But that still
actually.
doesn't help me. Okay. I'm sorry.
If that would be really cool. Hi, Carol.
Tom says hi. Okay. Okay, I'll just listen to my own echo. I don't care. Um,
Okay.
so the problem of evil is what? Like what were the terms that you meant that? Like after the fact of so-called enlightenment or whether or not evil exists?
Oh, well, I mean, so okay, the context is it was just occurring to me that I I always feel this awkward gap when I start talking to you, and the reason for that
Mhm.
is that everything we talk about in my classes and everything for the 99% of it, and everything that I have thought about all these years is essentially about the path that you say doesn't exist.
Uh-huh.
you know and one of the things that people are forever asking me about the problem of evil, because in the world of the imagination, and here we can just think of Jung as a classic example. The way Jung handles it is to talk about the shadow, you know,
Mhm.
and that for every good part of your personality, there's going to be a counterbalancing bad part or shadow. And he makes the argument that in order to handle those evil, well, I mean, without going into great detail, because I don't know great detail about Jung, but he seems to be suggesting that the source of evil is the human shadow, those things that are nasty and unconscious, and that the way to begin to solve the problems that are raised by your evil unconscious is to recognize that it's you, and that in some sense you have to integrate that so that you can then control it. But then the other part of my context is when you shift to Henry Corbin. I mean, he's a strange version, but he's a Christian,
Hmm.
and he's talking about the major monotheisms. And in his particular brand of theology, there is a what corresponds to a devil. There is the force for evil in the universe, and he doesn't give you a whole lot of pointers about how to handle that, but there is a source of evil, and you have to move towards the light. And he doesn't talk too much about the intermediate realm where evil and good are sort of mixed together. So, whereas Jung gives you a little bit of a hint as to how to cope with the forces of darkness, Corbin pretty much points you towards the standard Christian or Muslim or a Jewish take on the forces of evil. But then when I'm thinking about what little I may understand about your own journey, I have the sense, rightly or wrongly, that when you have the big awakening, it's just so obviously love all the way down. And maybe I'm misunderstanding that, but that's what I kind of have taken so far. Um, and so the question arises for me as to just what you have to say in that kind of context about the origin of evil.
Well, I think I'm like to the appendices or something of Jung's autobiography. So it's pretty obvious to me that while he was great and on target with exploring the stream of human consciousness, he didn't get nothingness, and he didn't understand that, and he didn't understand the necessity of the dissolution of self. He didn't like that. He thought that was some Asian shit.
Yeah, that
So
seems
he
about
wanted
right.
to
Yeah.
clarify the self. He wanted to build up a whole healthy self. Um, and for him, that means uh, sort of unifying or making the unconscious conscious. But there's this sort of the unconscious world or worlds, archetypal worlds, and spirits, which he says are different, but are almost, you can't really differentiate between the two, or it's really hard to. He wants to navigate all of that, and he wants to incorporate it into the self, or have sort of a back and forth kind of relationship with these things. And so that's well and good, all within the bubble or the stream of human consciousness. But what about that nothingness he doesn't understand? The moment
Mm.
of no self, in which there is no human stream. And what is there, if anything? So in the human stream, you've got these notions of good and evil and all of that stuff. And is that truth? Or is that just there? So if I'm saying that, it's tough, because if I make a positive statement about, oh, when the self dissolves, there is truth, which I do all the time, by the way, but I shouldn't.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm going to. So
Yeah.
truth transcends and includes the human stream. And part of what that means, unfortunately for us, is that health transcends and includes disease. Uh, so I would say that the human stream of consciousness is, very roughly speaking, a diseased stream of consciousness. And so I don't want to swim in the disease and play with the viruses. I want to know truth. I want to know what's what. And the irony is, I can't know that. The person who wants to know that has to, quote unquote, die for truth to be the case, because truth isn't some stagnant thing outside of all other things. It's living, breathing, formless awareness. It's an ultimate, or the ultimate, consciousness in which all of this crap is happening. So to understand that in any fruitful way is to be the first person identity as truth, not to approach it as a third person idea, something I can read about and study and all that, or a second person, like, oh, I get wisdom, but it's still me getting this wisdom, and I meet these beings who are projections of me trying to engage truth but not be it. I need to be that. It's all or nothing, right? But when it's all, there is no evil, because evil is part of that diseased mind. If you take truth and make wisdom, or you meet these beings who claim to be masters or whatever it is, or archetypes or any of it, that ain't it. That is still you avoiding the fact that you are truth, and that, our charge as human beings, I keep saying, is to be that first person identity as truth, which again is timeless. So it's bringing timelessness into time through the body, which is already time. You don't need to have time replicated mentally. In fact, that needs to go away. We need to be both aspects of wholeness, like not just thingness, but no thingness. But again, when you're there, you see that there isn't evil, and I wonder. Um, so like
Yeah.
I had the experience, back in time, I had the experience of that slit opening the spine and some demony gargoyle thing coming in and basking in the glow of being alive for the moments that it had. And I have well, I've read that about Buddha. I think Buddha went through a similar thing where some sort of demony attack happens. It's framed as an attack of some sort. And Jesus too, right? Jesus had the snake tempting him and all of that. And I also had a hallucinatory thing happen with snakes one fine night, where my mom was, this was in Queens in New York, and my mom was visiting from Massachusetts. It was right after
Yeah.
9/11 had happened, or soon
Yeah.
thereafter, not right after, but soon thereafter. And we were talking about, like, no, don't worry, we're safe, all of this. We had friends over, we were like playing a board game or something. I had roommates at the time. So a car explodes across the street as we're explaining to my mom how safe it is, because I had just moved to Queens from
Yeah.
Manhattan right before 9/11 happened.
Oh,
And we're like,
yeah.
no, no, we're fine here. And then boom, a car explodes across the street. So that was funny. And that was incidental. I bring it up because it may not be in the tricksterish sense of it, but like in the reality sense of it, it had nothing to do with a terrorist attack. It was like some people had stolen a car and then blew up the evidence across the street because there was some construction site there, and they did that. So uh then that night, my mom slept in my bed and I slept on the couch, and I had a roommate whose room was right there next to me. And I woke up in the night. I was sleeping on my side, and I think there were two cobras on the floor staring at me, and they looked hyper real, like they looked cartoonishly real. And I knew that there couldn't be cobras because that's stupid. So I sort of knew I was hallucinating or something. and I
Yeah.
rolled over, and suddenly this albino python, this massive albino python, comes, slithering fast up the length of my body, and I jump out of bed and throw the comforter on it, and I scream. My roommate comes out and is like, "What is it?" And like, "Snakes." And of course, there was
Yeah.
nothing there, and so he's laughing at me. And oddly enough, the room to my bedroom was open. Like I went to check on my mom, and she was asleep, but the door was open, which I found odd because she sleeps with the door closed. Because again, I have roommates.
Mm. Yeah.
So I just include all of that as like, all right, I've seen the demony thing, um, and that prior to the big I am universe awakening experience. And I wonder if they are, at least the snakes are kind of archetypal, the demony thing. I mean, I just wonder if like these are the things that people experience, and if their own culture they're told that these are demons attacking them or challenging them, then they treat it that way. And for me, I don't expect these things, and when they happen, in the moment, I don't have a cultural reflex to tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
So I just go, oh, maybe I flubbed my way to enlightenment in a sense of like not being scared at the scared moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all of that is the long ass way of saying, even in that moment, you kind of see that evil isn't evil. It may serve a purpose, and that purpose may be overridden by being a dumb guy, but where you're not scared when you're supposed to be. But I question what evil actually is as a bunch of stuff happening that we're not doing, right? Like if there is something that's not us that is evil per se, and it's really hard to see if there is to me because we do all the evil you can shake a stick at.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
there is like a sphere of influence that makes people do things or influences people in a way, um, one, that can't touch you when you're truth because you're out of that stream. That's not your stream.
Yeah.
You understand it and
Yeah.
you can, engage with it sort of, but it ain't you.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just think evil might be a balloon that you can let the air out of, or you can see the utility of. But once you do that, how can it affect you? Because it's like going through one of those House of Horrors at a carnival ride. Like when you know when to expect the booga to booga to boo, and you know that it's a carnival ride, it's not quite as scary, you know. Um, so I don't know. Does that kind of answer it? I think Jung's coming from the point of view of engaging with it within the bubble of human consciousness, and so yes, he's going to find evil and find it in man, and man's got to deal with his own shadow
Mm.
material and all that. And
Mm.
maybe other people see it in fallen angels, or angels,
Yeah.
period. The fact of angels must mean that there are fallen angels. What else is true? Or whatever. But I
Yeah.
feel like that's
Yeah. Yeah.
all imaginal stuff, and truth is apart from the imaginal stuff.
Yeah. Okay. No, it does. That was, it struck me as extremely articulate. So either you were very articulate or I'm actually paying attention today. So, um, and yeah, and that kind of, I guess that kind of confirms the suspicion I had that that is in fact the kind of thing that you would say, so my first comment to people, including me, who would differentiate Corbin from Jung. Yeah, let me see if I can say this. So, yeah, I think Corbin could say, oh, yeah, Jung made the mistake of remaining in what you call the bubble, but we spiritual mystics who don't operate, who are able to transcend the psychological, we are able to understand that there's a cosmic, objective cosmic source of evil, and then there's the God with the good angels, and and Corbin could perhaps say, yes, that's why I don't want to be thought of as a psychologist, but rather as a mystic, because we're outside the bubble. And you're saying,
You're in the
no, you're
bubble.
not. You're in a, and maybe if you were in a very good mood, you could say, well, your bubble's bigger. Okay, your bubble's bigger, but you're still in a bubble. Otherwise, you wouldn't see this opposition between this force for evil and this force for good, and yourself, positioned somewhere else in that
Right.
bubble. Yes. Yeah. Okay. No, that
In
actually,
fact, I would wonder why he would think that he's experiencing anything different than what Jung experienced. I mean, they may be using different words to try to make like a hierarchical situation, but I mean, Carl Jung wasn't just talking about the personal psyche. He was talking
well,
about ghosts. He was also talking about archetypal beings,
mhm,
that seem to, well, ghosts, he says, need you to understand whatever projects they were working on in life. They need you to
yeah,
fulfill
yeah,
them, so
yeah,
that they can, that's the only way they can gain more knowledge without being physical beings. I mean, he had this whole
mm,
rigmarole sort of in his head.
yeah,
And one of the things that he said was really interesting to me, because I think I've been saying it without knowing that I was saying it, which was what I am to tell you this and I'm to tell you is fiction, the title is about, which is that
yeah.
you need to have, um, it's like when you come up against the unknown, really, you need to, there becomes this sort of inherent need to build out a story about it. And he embraces that and says, yeah, you need to do that. You need to build a story, you need to build a myth, and you need to inhabit that. And so I wonder if to him, Corban would be an example of somebody who just did that, who like
Hmm.
can't know the unknowable. And so when brushing up against it, there becomes this story, much in the way I would say that, like, if you look into a microscope strongly enough to get to the bottom of where there's no particles, you're going to start hallucinating particles because you have to have something to see. You can't see nothing. So do you
Yeah.
hallucinate beings to see because you can't see nothing? Is this the problem of a second person experience of being really deep and trying to get to the, to the other side, but there is no other side because you need to be that. But if you keep walking like a Flintstones cartoon, you're going to be creating more and more path for you to walk, and you're going to be seeing more and more background stuff that's just sort of you projecting ahead of you. Is that what
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
angel ahead of
Yeah.
you is? A projection?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. 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 So there's, I mean, that seems right on to me, and the dialogue, at least, anybody who may be listening to us should always take whatever I say about Jung and Corbin with a bit of a grain of salt, because they're both, really complicated, deep thinkers, and you can find all sorts of things in their works. And you're getting my version of each of them always if I'm talking about them. So take it with a grain of salt. But the dialogue between Jung and Corbin is complicated by the fact that in my reading of Jung, there always there's a conflict in him. There's the Jung who will say and did say over and over again, I don't know whether God exists because I'm just a psychologist, and I'm not making metaphysical or religious claims. And he does that. He does it repeatedly. And then there's the other side of him who says, well, I know God exists because I've had that experience. And so there's a part of him that wants to be the scientist, to be taken seriously by his fellow scientists. And and in that part of his psyche, he has to say, well, that all anybody ever has, and this is your point, then that's when he says, all anybody ever has is their own psychological experience of images. And lots of cultures have experiences and images of God, but that doesn't mean God exists. And so he's very often very clear about the existence of the bubble, in which you have to make up a story, and you have to, and you know, in that part of his works, you know, the archetypes are, well, they're more than individually human, that's why they're collective, but they never occur, you know, you can't get outside the psyche. And so that's what makes him a psychologist. And Corbin doesn't want to have anything to do with that. You know, Corbin thinks, oh no, when you awaken, when you are a Sufi, you know, or pick your favorite mystic, you know, but when you know, Ibn Arabi, or it's not everybody, it's very rare, but there are people who, you know, have these awakenings, and then they are out of that bubble. They see reality as it is. And then they come back and they start religions. And Jung, sometimes he says, no, any experience that they would have had would have been a human experience, and they'd be in that bubble. And that's all I can talk about because I'm a psychologist. And then other times he speaks as if, well, yeah, God is real. And Corbett, so the bubble theory is a nice way of distinguishing, because I'll shut up, but Corbin, you know, he doesn't want to be thought of as a psychologist. He's a theologian and a
Did you
mystic.
ever see video of him speaking? Is there
Oh,
video?
Jung or Corbin?
Corban?
No.
Or do you know what
I
his demeanor was like? Was he scholarly? And because I'm just wondering if, like, in the end, does Jung win because Corban, for all of his I'm a mystic bluster, does he present himself in the archetypal scholar sensibility
no.
or no? No? Okay.
No, the only direct evidence I have of that is the indirect evidence of what James Hillman said about him when he was giving, because Hillman saw him repeatedly at the Aranos conferences, and I could probably find other places people who saw him talk. Um, but but I was there once long ago, 2001, in fact, and I gave a talk there about Corbin, and one of the people there was, oh God, this is embarrassing, but it's fine. I can't remember his name, but he had been there with the originals, so he knew Jung and Corbin, and I was my normal, excitable, enthusiastic self, and I reminded him of Corbin in a
Huh.
vague way.
Okay.
And Hillman says the same thing, that, oh no, he was passionate when he lectured and he embodied the imagination. So at least in his heyday, he was anything but the dry scholarly reader of texts.
Hmm.
He was a passionate champion for the realities of the imagination.
Hmm.
And
There's an yeah.
I think Jung was like that. And you know, I'm talking about things that I only know second or third hand. But Jung and I mean, Peter Kingsley says that Jung and Corbin really hit it off because each saw the Gnostic in the other. You know, oh, here's somebody who has seen the truth in that Gnostic sense. You know,
Yeah,
but Jung,
Young's
yeah,
I mean, I've seen video of Young talking, and he's has that sort of friendly but disciplined scholarly way. I mean, there's no way you wouldn't know that he's scholarly. And I just wonder if
yeah.
that, because he was so wanting to have this fall within the realm of science or be, an authority in it, if that conflicted with what he was.
Yeah. No, that's a good question, and we'd have to. I got to defer to people who saw them both talk, and that's a really fascinating. That's a fascinating question because I mean, Corbin can't fake that he's not a scholar. I mean, because at least as much as Jung. I mean, he's a scholar through and through, but he was very passionate about the things that they were both scholarly about were just the things that were most important to them because that's why they were doing it. I mean, Jung's got the Red Book, and Corbin does, as far as I know, have anything like that. But it's like not like they got a choice. This
Hmm.
is what we do, you know. And I think they both came across that way.
Hmm. Um, Getting back to evil, um, I wonder, it's kind of like ghosts versus archetypes. Like, it's so indistinguishable what is some outside phenomenon influencing people versus people doing crap, that is it even worth figuring that out? Or should we just assume that, like, if people were whole, healthy people, they wouldn't be influenced by that any more than they would by, um, conformity to an evil leader or, a cult or something like that?
Here's let me complicate things. From my own perspective, which is all I got. Um, Here's how I heard what you said. Um, this is simple, but it's hard for me to articulate it. So the old version of me, the pre-plant medicine version of me was a wannabe Jeremy or a wannabe Corbin. And I did a pretty good job inside the little tiny bubble that I was in. But I was in a very little bubble. And then after and the bubble got bigger. It got bigger than science, and it got as big as the human imagination. And I was pretending that it was the really big bubble inside of which Corbin lived. And then I went to Brazil and took plant medicine and discovered, oh shit, that I hadn't even come close, that there was all sorts of realities which I had totally blocked off. Okay. And so I am currently, I guess, and this is all provisional, in a much bigger bubble because I think on a good day, I'm now able to recognize the reality of non human kin, not animals, but maybe ghosts, maybe something like an angel, maybe, the whatever it is that comes down and seems to abduct people. I mean, all that was off the table for me because all I had was, well, of course, it's all human imagination. Before my starting to read Hillman and Corbin and Jung, and then decades, and then plant medicine, before all that, it was all just obviously human shit. And so my response to what I heard you say is no, no, no. You've got to give poor people like me who want to get out of the bubble, you have to let them make their bubble bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger before they have even a snowball's chance in hell of getting out of it. Does that make sense as a kind of answer?
Wait, what is the last part? People like me or people like you?
No, like me,
People
like
like
me.
you have to
Yeah,
make your bubble bigger before you have a
bigger
chance
and
to get
bigger.
out of
Yeah,
it.
or yeah.
Do you still believe
Because
that?
when the bubble, yeah, well, that's my question to myself. Do I believe that? Yeah, I think so. I think so because, yeah, I think so.
So how
I
are you
think
making your
so.
bubble bigger?
By expanding the range of things that I will allow to be both independent of me and real.
Okay. So, I mean, in just a basic sense, we've talked about this. Yeah, you need to be at a place where you can hear something to hear something. So if you're so closed off, if you're like a debunker type who can't allow for anything other than materialism and material processes, if something else comes along, you're not going to, yeah, of course, you're not going to be able to hear it until you expand your bubble or whatever to be able to hear that.
Yeah.
But the idea that, like a teenager or a college kid, you've got to just keep trying all these different things because that's expanding the bubble, that ain't it, right? Like that's just appeasing your own curiosity and interests about things. If the offshoot of that is what you're saying, which is like, well, the offshoot of that is that I now am more open to, fine. But the problem is, this is what the self does. Someone like you, and I'm not saying you because time
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
tell,
Yeah.
but someone
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
position will do that forever. It'll
Mm-hmm.
become the next thing, the next, I would say crutch, but it's the next sort of feeling of who you are. Like I'm the person I'm preparing for this quote unquote enlightenment thing by doing all these enlightening things and hello. Huh. Is anyone there? Tom, you're back? Tom? Tom? Tom, Tom, Tom. Tom? Tom? This is bizarre. I hear you, but you're not in this room. Hello? Tom? Does anyone hear me? Tom? How is this even possible? I see you, I hear you in the chat, but you're not actually in this program. What the hell?
He may have lost
Yeah, he did lose.
internet. I did not. Oh, am I still live?
Yes.
Maybe I am.
Tom.
But I don't know if anybody's watching. I hope I didn't pick my nose. Um, yeah, I don't know how Jeremy seems to have disappeared. Uh, my little screen says that I'm on air, but I don't have. If there's anybody watching, we apologize. Um, but I don't have, let me see. I don't think I can receive your questions, even even if you're out there, which I also don't know. What about? Yeah, no, no, that's not it. But let me let me pretend that there's someone watching. Oh, that's really awkward. Um, but my response to what Jeremy was just saying was that that makes perfect sense to me. That you could have the kinds of experiences that I had in Brazil with the plant medicine and be utterly convinced to maybe go back into the room. Oh, yeah, I tried that. I tried to go back into the room. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let me try it on this computer. Um, and let me get out of that one and yeah. Ah, no. Now I'm now I'm only hearing myself doubled. Wait.
Uh-oh. Guys, does anyone see or hear me? Someone say you can see or hear me. I could see and hear Tom in the Prism app. I can't see either of us in the YouTube thing, and he's not in the thing that I invited him to get into the Prism app. So I don't know how he's in the Prism app. But now, of course, he's gone. So I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like, this is going so well. I can see you both and hear Tom. Yes, Tom did just disappear. I still don't see either of us on YouTube, so I'll just take your word for that. All right, hold on. I'm sorry. I wish I had some on hold music for you. Well, I do, but you don't want to really hear that, right? Yeah, internet problems. I don't know. Where are you, dude? All right. Please hold while I figure this out.
seeing things
Hello?
up here that
Tom? We're back to where everyone can hear us, but you can't hear
number
me.
of scenes. What's that? Oh, well, no, I'm still not
Dude,
hearing
you've
you.
got to have me on mute. Where are you?
Oh, not good. Maybe you can. No, not visible. Director.
Hold on.
Wow. 4 megabytes per second. Wow. And he's back.
Do you hear this? Do you hear this? All roads lead to...
You know what?
What?
We should I don't know. We should try this on Substack. Everybody and his brother and sister are doing live videos on Substack.
Okay.
And I have a Substack. And and my guess is that it's easier than this, because there's a lot of people who don't know what they're doing that do it on Substack. In fact, yeah, we should. I mean, not right now, but we should try that. We should do it. We should do Wise Ask on Substack, except I don't know if you can. I don't know anything about it except that everybody's doing it, and I would assume, though I don't know, that you could record, and you can also do webinars on Zoom, except you have to pay for it. And I already pay too much for Zoom as it is.
All right.
But I have to say I'm not impressed with your software choice.
Well, everyone, as much as I
Although,
enjoy listening to Tom Cheatham
no, I
fucking
still
bitch
can't.
and moan while
I
I
still
try to
can't hear
fix
you. But
things about how
he's
much everything
speaking.
sucks, I'm just going to call it
And
because
if I could read lips.
that's nonsense. All right. Maybe we will do this on Substack sometime. I'm sorry. I know you can see and hear us both, but this ain't working for me, and I don't know. It's trickster shit, isn't it?
Well, I gotta have dinner pretty soon, I just gonna pass out.
Oh. Okay, now I see us on YouTube. Everyone can see us except Tom. Well, see and hear everything.
So Carol would be the only one paying. No, Carol definitely is off doing something useful.
I mean, you've got to have me muted.
He's
You've got to have me muted. This is you. I know this is you. I'm gonna kill you if I'm muted. If all of this is because I'm muted. And yet he can't read his freaking chat messages. I'm just going to give it a second for Tom to tell me whether or not I'm muted. I just emailed him. And if this doesn't work, then we're done. Tom, check your email.
Yes, you are muted. I can't hear you at all. I
Am I
cannot hear
muted on
you.
your end?
Can't hear you.
Jesus Christ.
But I mean, but I didn't mute you.
Are you sure? Will you check? Because everything shows that I'm up.
I didn't do anything. I didn't.
All right. Here, I'm putting us out of our misery. Good night, everybody.
Bye, Jeremy.
Sorry that this failed
Uh,
so horribly. There's really no reason for it. All right. I will make this up to you. I'll do like a solo live show at some point or something here this week. I don't know. But anyway, evil.